The 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans rekindled one of the greatest rivalries in motorsports, with Ferrari and Porsche locked in a wheel-to-wheel fight for victory over the entire 24 hours. But this clash of titans at the world's greatest endurance race got off to a difficult start for the number 6 factory Porsche, which failed post-qualifying tech and therefore sits 21st and dead last in the hypercar category. So, as Kevin Estre pulls away from the starting grid, he and his team have a titanic task in front of them as they try to battle their way up through this ultra-competitive hypercar field. This amount of pressure would be daunting to most drivers, but as we know, Kevin isn't most drivers. When the odds are stacked against him is when he's strongest. He seemingly always finds a way to slice through the field with such unrelenting force and power that we call it the Estre effect. So, as the field winds their way through the Ford chicane, with 24 hours on the clock, pressure is at its highest, and Kevin Estre is ready to pounce. The race goes green, and Estre squeezes the throttle on the exit as he gets a kick of oversteer and makes his way past the 007 Aston Martin Valkyrie, which is making its Le Mans debut. The field charges into the tight Dunlop chicane, which is always so treacherous on the first lap, and Kevin makes his way around the outside of the privately entered Proton Porsche as he tries to sneak up the inside of the other Valkyrie as well, but he's caught up behind one of the 9X8s. He squeezes the throttle on the exit and makes his way around, making that 4 positions gained already as he makes his way past the other Aston Martin Valkyrie, but gets a kick of oversteer on the entry of the S's. These cold tires can be so treacherous on this opening lap. Into Tête Rouge, which is critical because it leads onto the Mulsanne straight, and he clips the apex curb and tucks into the draft of the other 9X8. As they make their way down this long straight, we can see this Porsche inching closer and closer in the draft of that 9X8. Estre pops to the left-hand side and makes his way past. This might be a 24-hour endurance race, but Estre is wasting absolutely no time as he works his way up through this field. Conway squeezes past Taylor into the first chicane, and Estre is now all over the rear of this Cadillac as he gets a little kick of oversteer on the exit, but gets a better run coming out of the corner than that 101 car. He uses the side draft off of that Cadillac with its V8 American engine thundering down the Mulsanne straight to claw his way up alongside the 101 car of Ricky Taylor. Estre inches his Porsche ahead as Taylor cedes the position as they head into the second chicane. Estre now closing in on the number 7 Toyota up front, which has that special red Le Mans tribute livery. Through the exit, we get a beautiful view of this conga line of hypercars streaming through the Mulsanne kink as they head into the Mulsanne corner. This is such an incredible time to be a sports car fan, to have this many hypercars all battling wheel to wheel for victory. Estre brakes as late as possible and uses all of the road on the entry to this tight right-hand hairpin. He gets a kick of oversteer on the exit as he is tucked up firmly behind number 7 Toyota of Mike Conway. That Toyota has strong acceleration off the corner, but Estre has strong top speed as we have seen earlier and tucks into the draft of this number 7 car. The Toyota defends to the right-hand side, but Estre pops up the inside and then brakes late into Fast Indy. An aggressive move from Estre. That's, you counted right, 7 positions gained on the first lap. Without a doubt, one of the best first laps you will ever see in Le Mans history. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I always root for this number 6 Porsche to do well, but when I saw that they received a post-qualifying penalty and that Estre would be starting the race from last position, a little part of me was very excited to see what he could do. And boy, he did not disappoint. So as Estre makes his way through the Porsche curves, we can see that the top 10 is just within touching distance. There are the 2 Alpines ahead, then the yellow 83 Ferrari, but just ahead of that is the black number 8 Toyota, which is 10th position. So as he makes his way through Maison Blanche and through this really tricky left-hander, clattering that apex curb and using all of the road on the right-hand side, he is within touching distance of the top 10 at the end of the first lap. Truly incredible as he pokes his nose up the inside of that 35 Alpine, clatters that first apex curb through the Ford chicane. They really use so much curb now in these modern hypercars, clattering the curbs once again. They will do that for 24 hours, absolutely battering the car. But that's what it takes nowadays to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. through the fast Tetru's corner and onto the even faster Mulsanne straight. ESTRE is tucked up behind this Alpine. The Porsche isn't the strongest on acceleration, but we've already seen it definitely has strong top speed. So as they make their way down the fastest section of the Mulsanne straight, Habsburg defends to the right-hand side. ESTRE tucks into the draft one more time before popping out to the left-hand side and trying to make his way around the outside. And Habsburg cedes the position through the first chicane, with ESTRE now up to 13th place as he closes in on the sister 36 Alpine of Fred Makowiecki. Once again, they hurdle their way into the first chicane, with ESTRE closing in on the 36 Alpine. He pops to the right-hand side and brakes as late as he possibly can, but Makowiecki defends the position, with ESTRE unable to make his way past that 36 car. He squeezes the throttle on the exit, gets a better run coming out of the corner, and is fully tucked up underneath the rear wing of this 36 car. He pops to the left-hand side and uses the side draft once again to get ahead before pulling over to the left-hand side, trying to dodge the wake off of that 36 car, as Makowiecki now tries to catch the side draft off the Porsche and drag his way up alongside and then past, but just isn't able to do so and falls in line behind, with ESTRE now up to 12th position and now chasing down the yellow 83 Ferrari of Phil Hansen. ESTRE is making me sound like a bit of a broken record, but once again we are hurtling down the Mulsanne straight into the first chicane, and ESTRE is once again trying to overtake a fellow hypercar. This time the 83 Ferrari, though, he pops to the right-hand side, and Phil Hansen, unlike Fred Makowiecki, does not put up a fight and allows ESTRE to squeeze past up into 11th position. Through the apex and on the exit, we can see how committed ESTRE is, as he already pulls a gap on this number 83 AF Corsa Ferrari. With the stint continuing, ESTRE closes in on the 8 Toyota of Sebastian Buemi, who is battling with the 51 Ferrari of James Collado. Through the Dunlop chicane, ESTRE uses all of both apex curbs and the exit as well. Now, you might have noticed that ESTRE's windscreen looks really dirty, especially considering that we're only 25 minutes into this race. And that's because there was actually a lot of flies and bugs at Le Mans this year. And that will actually play a pretty interesting role later in this race, but we will discuss that later, because the Ferrari and Toyota are going 3 wide around a BMW GT3 car as they hurtle down the Mulsanne straight into the first chicane. The Ferrari staying just ahead of that Toyota of Buemi, who is looking for a way past. He looks around the outside into the first chicane, with the Ferrari defending to the inside. They go side by side into the corner, with the Toyota just squeezing ahead of James Collado in the 51 car. ESTRE tucks in behind the two of them, which are caught up in LMGT3 traffic on the exit. Buemi finds his way around that Porsche 911, with the Ferrari following just behind, and ESTRE in the draft of both of them. He pulls to the left-hand side, and even in the draft, the Ferrari has no match for this Porsche on the straights, as ESTRE closes in on Buemi as well. He looks to the right, then to the left. The Toyota thinks about defending, but ESTRE brakes late up the inside as he closes in on yet more hypercars. But that was 2 overtakes on one straight into the chicane to bring this number 6 Porsche up into P9, as these hypercars continue to weave their way through this LMGT3 traffic. ESTRE going 2 wheels just over the white line as he makes his way past that Ferrari. These hypercars are so much faster in a straight line than the LMGT3, but they're actually not that much faster through the corners. So it makes overtaking actually a lot easier for these hypercar drivers, because they can just blast their way past along the straights. And if they get caught behind in the corners, they actually won't lose too much time. But ESTRE now has this number 20 BMW of Rene Rast in his crosshairs. At VMAX, this Porsche once again has the legs and pulls to the right-hand side, going 2 wheels onto the shoulder as he squeezes past that number 20 car, now with the other number 15 BMW directly in his sights. Into the Dunlop chicane, and Kevin Magnussen aboard his BMW has a huge amount of GT3 traffic just out front of him that Kevin ESTRE will try to use to his advantage to get ahead of the number 15 car. They squeeze past the Mustang into the S's, and ESTRE gets a little wiggle through the apex as he falls back compared to Kevin Magnussen, struggling to get his car turned in to that tricky left-hander. Through Tete Rouge, Magnussen is tucked up behind 2 GT3 cars. He goes around the outside of the Aston Martin, but is nearly taken out by a Ferrari, which pulled just in front of him. ESTRE sweeps around the BMW and brings his Porsche up into 7th position as he closes in on the 311 Cadillac to finish the stint. He uses every inch of the road as he makes his way into the pit lane, because winning at the 24 Hours of Le Mans requires you to maximize every single aspect of the race. Kevin trundles down the pit lane and then pulls to the right-hand side just ahead of his sister number 5 Porsche, which currently leads the race. The crew jumps on the hood to clean off that windshield, and Kevin ESTRE looks cool and calm as ever. After that incredible first stint, clearly he is not satisfied and fully focused on continuing his charge up through the field. Back out on track, Kevin ESTRE is in 5th position, having jumped the number 311 car in the pit lane. And as he makes his way through the Porsche curves, we can see just ahead is a number 50 Ferrari of Nicholas Nielsen, who's chasing down the 38 Cadillac of Earl Bamber, who started on the front row. ESTRE looks around the outside of the LMP2, but they're fast through the corners, and he tucks in behind as they go through the tricky left-hander, and then sweeps past through Corvette corner, a little awkward there, through that left-right chicane as he closes in on the number 50 Ferrari, which is caught in traffic behind a slow LMP2. Into the tight Ford chicane, there is nowhere for the Cadillac or the Ferrari to go as they make their way onto the front straight. ESTRE gets a kick of oversteer as the Ferrari powers past the LMP2 car down the front straight, ESTRE following closely behind. We can see they're coming up on another LMP2 car into the first corner. The Ferrari makes their way up the inside, but ESTRE goes around the outside and brakes late into the Dunlop chicane. An aggressive overtake that puts him within touching distance of the 2 hypercars out front. The Ferrari and Cadillac pull a slight gap on the Porsche on the exit, but ESTRE is close enough to get a draft from these 2 cars ahead. ESTRE floats his Porsche through the S's. As he goes over this tricky crest, the road falls away on the exit. It's easy to understeer wide there. Now through Tete Rouge, the crucial corner that leads onto this long straight. ESTRE now picking up a draft and has 3rd place in his sights. As the Ferrari gallops down the Mulsanne straight into the 2nd chicane, he closes in on Earl Bamber, who tries to defend his position, but Nielsen darts to the left-hand side and makes his way past in the braking zone, bringing this Ferrari into a podium position as ESTRE tries to follow the Ferrari driver through. With the stint continuing, ESTRE continues to pile on the pressure and look for a way past this number 38 car. On board, we can see his expression is steely as ever, as he is determined to make his way past. Into Indianapolis, he looks up to the right-hand side as we can see traffic in front of this Cadillac. Bamber defends to the middle of the road, dissuading ESTRE from trying to make his way past as he squeezes up the inside of the Corvette, trying to build a gap on this number 6 Porsche. ESTRE has a run coming out of the corner though and darts to the right-hand side, but Bamber defends into Arnage, the slowest corner on the circuit. The Cadillac's exit is compromised by that tight apex, and ESTRE could not be closer as he puts the power down. Bamber holds a defensive line to the right-hand side as ESTRE now has an overlap as they head into Indy. An LMP2 car boxes in the 38 car, and ESTRE is through up into 4th position, with Bamber having to fall in behind the number 6 car. By the time his stint has come to an end, ESTRE is up to 1st position. But it's not really a net P1 though, it's just because he went a lap longer on fuel. So we'll have to wait until these strategies unwind when the number 6 exits the pits to know for sure if they really have moved up to a net P1 in the race. But either way, as ESTRE enters the pit lane, it was an incredible double stint for him. He cruises into his pit box as he hits his marks and then jumps out of the car to hand over to Laurens Vanthoor. Now, I mentioned earlier that we'd talk about the flies one more time, and we can see, of course, they're washing the flies off the windscreen. That's obvious. But they're also, if you look in the mirror, washing the flies off of the rear wing as well. The buildup of insects was actually enough to have a noticeable detriment to the aerodynamic efficiency of that rear wing. So obviously every second, and also every insect in this case, counts when you're trying to win the world's greatest 24-hour race. But with the insects removed, the tires are being replaced, and Vanthoor is ready to go out on track for his first stint in this 24 Hours of Le Mans. But as he exits the pit lane, the 3rd place Ferrari and 2nd place Porsche are closing in on this number 6 car. Vanthoor exits the pits, but is on freezing cold tires, gets a ton of wheel spin on the exit. We can see the number 5 Porsche come flying past around the outside into the Dunlop chicane. Vanthoor needs to quickly put temperature in his tires to not only catch this number 5 car, but also to stay ahead of the 50 Ferrari, which is now just behind that white-striped Porsche. We can see Vanthoor struggling for grip on the exit as he is asking for more than those cold tires can deliver. Fuoco dives up the inside into the S's and sweeps past the Porsche, claiming second position for Ferrari as Vanthoor gets a huge kick of oversteer through that left-hander, still struggling with these cold tires. Onto the Mulsanne straight, he can finally take a deep breath, but is now shuffled back to third position with the 50 Ferrari of Fuoco chasing down Mathieu Jaminet in that number 5 Porsche. Jaminet eases to the right-hand side as he dissuades that Ferrari from overtaking into Mulsanne corner, but Fuoco could not be closer as they make it through the tight right-hander. The Ferrari piling on the pressure as they make their way down this long straight into Indianapolis. Jaminet defends to the right, but Fuoco blasts past on the left-hand side as they make their way through this first kink. Ferrari asserting their dominance on this 2025 race as they snatch first place away from Porsche. With Jaminet back in second, Vanthoor is now chasing him down as well as they head into Indy one more time. Into the fast right-hander, we can see traffic ahead for the number 5 Porsche. Through the slow left-hander, and Jaminet is caught behind the silver Aero Mercedes. Through the exit, he has to hit the brakes as there was an awkward moment with that GT3 car. Jaminet is up the inside, but Vanthoor has closed in on the black stripe Porsche. With Vanthoor making his way past that Mercedes on the exit, he is fully in the draft of his teammate in the number 5 car. As they sweep through this winding straight that leads into the Porsche curves, he inches closer and closer to his teammate. Jaminet dives up the inside of a GT3 car, but backs out of it as the Ferrari takes the apex. Vanthoor goes around the outside of both of them through the Porsche curves to claim second place for this number 6 Porsche as he continues to chase down the number 50 Ferrari. But while Vanthoor has one eye on that number 50 car, his other one is looking back at this number 83 of Robert Kubica, who is chasing down the number 6 Porsche. Vanthoor is caught behind traffic through Tête Rouge, which allows Kubica to close in dramatically on that number 6 Porsche. With Vanthoor's run compromised, he will be losing time all the way down this long straight compared to the 83 Ferrari. Kubica inches closer and closer as Vanthoor is a sitting duck on this long straight. Vanthoor kicks up sparks as he makes his way past the Iron Dames Porsche, but Kubica looks around the outside into the first chicane. Vanthoor doesn't fight it and allows Kubica to sweep past around the outside to claim second place for the privately entered AF Corsa yellow Ferrari. But Vanthoor is not giving up that easily and stays close to that number 83 Ferrari as they make their way into the pit lane one more time. Vanthoor absolutely uses every inch of road, and we can see how much he gains on that 83 Ferrari on the pit lane entry. As I said, maximizing every element of this race is critical to winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and this number 6 crew will not leave a single second out on the track or in the pit lane. Kubica takes a sip of water and prepares for an epic battle that is to come with the number 6 Porsche. With his stop complete, Vanthoor pulls out of the pit box and into the fast lane. Kubica pulls out of his box as well, but critically loses the position to the number 6 Porsche. As they accelerate coming out of the pit lane, we can see that number 6 car just ahead of Robert Kubica. But as they make their way through the Dunlop chicane, look up in the mirror, because that is the number 51 car, Antonio Giovinazzi, who has joined the number 83 in chasing down this white stripe number 6 Porsche. 4 hours into this race, and the battle for second position could not be closer between these three. Into Tête Rouge, Vanthoor is second, but it looks like it will be a 3 versus 1 battle to the end of the race, with 3 Ferraris versus 1 Porsche for the win at the 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans. Kubica closes in as they make their way into Mulsanne corner. He pokes his nose up the inside with Vanthoor caught behind GT3 traffic, and we can see that 51 car is just behind both of them. These three are going to fight tooth and nail for this position. Kubica tucks in behind Vanthoor as they make their way past these GT3 cars and actually is feathering the throttle. He has such a big run on that Porsche. He goes around the outside of Vanthoor as we can see him go wheel to wheel into Indianapolis. The 51 car of Giovinazzi also has a run and makes it 3 wide into Indy, but backs out of it as Vanthoor is able to hold on to second place in this number 6 Porsche. But you get the feeling it's just a matter of time till these Ferraris make it past. Vanthoor is fighting, but fighting the inevitable, it seems. But he will keep fighting because that is what he and this entire number 6 crew do. They absolutely never give up and will always fight for every single inch of track, even with 20 hours left in a 24-hour race. Once more, Kubica has a run. He goes 2, make that 4 wheels off the track as he squeezes past into Mulsanne corner. Robert Kubica up into second position through the second tightest corner on the track. But as we know, the Porsche is fast in the Ferrari's draft, and Vanthoor will not give up without a fight. As he flashes his lights and draws in closer and closer to the 83 Ferrari, he pops to the left-hand side, and they go side by side into Indianapolis one more time. This time Vanthoor around the outside. Kubica tries to defend and tries to get the side draft, but the Porsche squeezes him on the entry, and Vanthoor is back up to second position. Robert Kubica's stint in second place only lasted 1 straight, with Vanthoor now back in the driver's seat. Looking back from Vanthoor's Porsche, we can see the 2 Ferraris stalking this 963. I hope you are enjoying this because we are absolutely living in a golden era of endurance racing. Once more into Indianapolis, and Kubica once more has a run on the Porsche. This time he looks around the outside of the number 6 car. Vanthoor tries to defend as best he can, but that Ferrari is just so strong. Vanthoor fights it as hard as he can though, but Kubica makes his way around the outside with an aggressive pass on the white striped Porsche to claim second position once more for the 83 Ferrari. Into the tightest corner on the track, and Kubica runs really wide, and so does Vanthoor. They are pushing to the absolute limit, and Giovinazzi now has a run on the Porsche on the exit as Vanthoor ran wide through the previous corner. Giovinazzi goes around the outside into the Porsche curves, and Vanthoor is once again a sitting duck with Giovinazzi in the draft of the 83 car. Vanthoor cannot defend around the outside there and falls in line behind the number 51 Ferrari. But Giovinazzi is caught up in GT3 traffic, and Vanthoor will not give up without a fight. Into Maison Blanche, and Giovinazzi goes around the outside of the Manthey Porsche, and so does Laurens Vanthoor. He pushes this Porsche to its limit and gets a huge snap of oversteer through the apex. Vanthoor absolutely pushing to the limit, but ultimately falling back to 4th position behind the 3 dominant Ferraris. And as Saturday becomes Sunday, the 3 Ferraris continue to lead the race. But although a Ferrari 1-2-3 seems inevitable at this point, at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, absolutely anything can happen. And when you think things are certain, that is when they are certainly about to change. So, as a full course yellow comes out, the 51 Ferrari is leading the race. But this comes at a bad time for them because they owe us a pit stop. And if we look up to the right-hand side, we can see a red X above the pit lane entry. And that tells us that the pit lane is closed. So the Ferrari will have to make a short pit stop just to get a little bit more fuel before making another pit stop on the next lap. And although they hold a commanding lead, this will be where their race starts to unravel. After making their emergency pit stop, Pierre Guidi hustles on the next lap to make it into the pit lane and lose as little time as possible with their second pit stop in short succession. He brakes as late as he possibly can, maximizes the pit lane entry, but goes in too deep and spins off of the track. The 51 Ferrari, which was comfortably leading the race, is now stuck in the gravel. Pierre Guidi has to work so hard to get his car out of the gravel. It's actually really impressive that he could do so. Normally, you would have seen a car get stuck in a situation like that, but he's able to drag that Ferrari out of the gravel trap, but still needs to turn it around and get it to enter the pit lane. He is losing valuable time with the cars now racing at full speed around the circuit. Finally, he turns the car around and enters the pit lane, but lost such valuable time compared to his competitors. The 83 Ferrari was able to make it past and now sits in the lead of this 24-hour race. Pierre Guidi is finally into his pit box, and we can see the gravel on his tires, and he is visibly so frustrated. But he can't let that frustration fester, because just behind him, chasing him down, are the number 50 Ferrari and this number 6 Porsche of Kevin Estre. So, with one more shake of the head and pound of the fist, Pierre Guidi is back focused, with the Ferrari now back out on track. That error allowed the 50 car back in the hunt, as Nicholas Nielsen now chases down James Calado into Indianapolis. He pulls to the right-hand side, and they go 3 wide around a GT3 Ferrari, with that number 50 car now up into second position. The 51 car moving from a solid first position now to the final step of the podium. But just behind both of them, getting a kick of oversteer, is that number 6 Porsche hunting them down for a podium position. Now, with just over 2 hours of the race remaining and Campbell aboard the car, this number 6 Porsche is closing in on that 51 Ferrari of James Calado. Into the Porsche curbs, we can see bugs strewn across the windscreen of this 6 Porsche, and as we know now, that is clearly taking downforce away from both this Porsche and the Ferrari ahead. Through Maison Blanche, and the Porsche is closing in on that 51 car, which drifts wide through the fast right-hander. Campbell uses all of the apex and exit curb as he takes heaps of time out of that Ferrari through the faster corners. This number 51 car is clearly struggling on tires as the stint continues, and Campbell continues to close in through the Ford chicane with that Ferrari caught behind a Ferrari GT3 car. Campbell with a little slide on the exit as he pushes this Porsche to its limit. Down the front straight, the Ferrari makes its way past the 2 GT3 cars, and Campbell also squeezes past through this fast sweeping right-hander that leads into the Dunlop chicane. He clobbers the apex curb, slides through the apex, and then slides on the exit as well. This Porsche being driven to within an inch of its life. And as they make their way down into the S's, Campbell uses all of the road on the entry and just ever so slightly kisses the apex curb as they go over this tough crest, gets a little slide as the car gets light, and then makes his way through Tete Rouge, a little bit wide of the apex, using all of the road on the exit. And as we can look back from this number 51 Ferrari, that Porsche is looming large in James Calado's mirrors. Campbell closes into the first chicane, but just isn't close enough to make a move and settles in behind that red Ferrari as they make their way through the right, left, right sequence. Campbell uses absolutely all of the road on the apex and on the exit as well, maximizing the track width, trying to maximize his speed on that exit to close in on this number 51 car. As they make their way down this straight, the Porsche inches closer and closer, and Campbell sweeps to the left-hand side around the 51 car to claim a podium position with just over 2 hours remaining. Campbell gets a slide on the exit and lays down the rubber as he tries to power away from James Calado. Looking back from the Porsche, that Ferrari isn't going anywhere, but Campbell is trying as hard as he can to build a gap and consolidate this podium finish for the number 6 Porsche. But as the stint comes to an end, he has done more than consolidate his position. He has closed in on the 50 car as well and brakes incredibly late on the pit lane entry, using all of that apex curb, getting a kick of oversteer on the exit as well as he maximizes absolutely every single second of his stint, now within touching distance of that second place Ferrari. He pulls into his pit box, and the crew will get to work to quickly refuel this number 6 Porsche and re-clean that rear wing to make sure that there are no insects limiting the downforce on this number 6 car. With his stop complete, Campbell pulls away from his pit box. But if we jump on board the number 50 Ferrari, we can see that as the Porsche flashes past, the Ferrari is taking tires. Campbell is now up into second position, with the Ferrari team having to bolt on a set of fresh Michelin tires. The Ferrari is dropped, and Fuoco quickly pulls out of his pit box. But as we know, he is going to lose time on this outlap on these cold tires. So as he pulls out of his pit box and spins his rear wheels, he needs to work to quickly put temperature in his tires and close in on that number 6 car. We can hear just how delicately he is moving through this Dunlop chicane as he goes over both apex curbs and delicately puts the power down on the exit. Up ahead, Matty Campbell is hammering as fast as he possibly can, trying to build a huge gap on the number 50 car so that when this Porsche comes in for its pit stop, they can change tires and drivers and stay ahead of Fuoco. With his stint complete, Campbell once again maximizes pit lane entry, has a windscreen full of flies, and slams on the brakes as he enters the pit lane. He pulls into his box, hits his marks, and jumps out of the car as he hands over to none other than Kevin Estre, who has unfinished business because this Porsche is still in second place. And with Estre being strapped aboard, the number 50 Ferrari comes past to enter its pit box. We can see the yellow 83 of Robert Kubica just ahead of that 6 Porsche as the 50 car hits its marks. With Estre ready, the door is slammed shut, and he has one objective with 1 hour and 20 minutes remaining: to stay ahead of the 50 and 51 Ferraris and catch that yellow number 83. With the tire change complete, the car is dropped and Estre launches out of his box. If we look to the right, though, as Estre trundles down the pit lane, we can see there is the number 50 Ferrari. Estre was able to stay ahead despite that tire change, thanks to Campbell's incredible stint aboard that number 6 car. So, as Fuoco leaves his pit box, he is chasing down Estre, who was on freezing cold tires. It is once again critical that he put temperature in these tires as quickly as possible to retain his second position. Through the Dunlop chicane, and Estre has so much understeer on these cold tires as he squeezes the throttle on the exit and gets a kick of oversteer with these tires struggling for grip. We can see that GT3 car is actually pulling away as he makes his way through the S's. That's how little grip he has on these cold tires as the car understeers through the left-hander and then struggles for grip over the crest. That GT3 continuing to pull away as Estre makes his way through Tete Rouge and puts the power down using as much road as he dares on the exit. Finally, on the long straight, he can begin to stretch his legs aboard this number 6 Porsche. But that 50 Ferrari is following closely behind, and we can actually see the number 99 Proton Porsche is just behind Estre in the number 6. And as they reach VMAX into the first chicane, Estre actually defends from this number 99 Proton Porsche, which is not on the lead lap. That's not a race for position, but Estre needs to stay ahead to maintain that gap to the number 50 car. Through the first chicane, and we can see that Estre has started to put temperature in his tires. He's not lacking as much grip as he was earlier, but still gets a kick of oversteer on the exit as he is pushing his Porsche to its limits. Just behind, though, Fuoco continues to close in on this Porsche. Through every corner, he's gaining just a little bit. Just ahead, though, Estre once again defends with the number 99 Porsche looking for a way past into the second chicane. Estre is pushing his Porsche to its limit and gets a huge snap of oversteer through the apex. The tires still not quite up to temperature, but Estre is pushing them as hard as he possibly can. Fuoco continues to close in on second place as the number 99 Porsche pulls to the right-hand side after getting blue flags and allows Fuoco to pass, now within touching distance of the white-striped Porsche. Into Mulsanne corner, and we can see Estre is using every inch of road possible. On the exit, though, Estre is just able to power away on his fresher tires. It looks like they're finally offering him enough grip to maintain his gap to this number 50 Ferrari. And as they make their way down this long straight, Fuoco is closing in, but not as much as he was before. Into Indianapolis, and they catch GT3 traffic. Estre pulls to the right-hand side. Fuoco is close, but there is nowhere for him to go as Estre's Porsche bottoms out through fast Indy. Fuoco is no longer closing in through the corners, and Estre builds a gap on the exit with his fresh tires providing him more grip. Through the slowest corner on the track, and Estre carries more apex and exit speed as he once again pulls away. Estre has fended off the number 50 Ferrari and will now look forward to try to catch that number 83. And as we look ahead from the number 50 with under 30 minutes remaining in the race, we can see that Estre has pulled away, but look to the pit lane exit because there is the number 51 car of Antonio Giovinazzi who has jumped ahead of this 50 car in the pit sequence. At this point, the number 83 Ferrari and the number 6 Porsche are out of reach of these two Ferraris. So this is the battle for the final position on the podium. As they make their way into Mulsanne corner, Giovinazzi is ahead, but Fuoco is closing in his draft. Into the tricky braking zone, and Fuoco pokes his nose into the mirror of Giovinazzi, trying to distract him as they slam on the brakes into this tight corner. Giovinazzi is slightly wide, and Fuoco gets a better run through the exit. He is now fully tucked into the draft of the number 51 car. And as they motor down the fastest section of the course, Fuoco inches closer to his teammate. Giovinazzi defends to the right, and Fuoco goes 2 wheels off the track to make his way past his Ferrari teammate for 3rd position. Giovinazzi is not giving up though, and tucks into the draft of his teammate as he will battle to reclaim that podium position. Through slow Indy, and Fuoco continues to pull away from his teammate. Giovinazzi brakes on the absolute limit into the slowest corner on the track, and Fuoco slides slightly wide through the exit. Giovinazzi has the better run coming out of the corner, and Fuoco allows the 51 car to pass. Fuoco put up a valiant fight, but ultimately, this will be the finishing order for the 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans. So, with 0 minutes left on the clock, nobody can catch Robert Kubica, who makes his way through the Ford chicane one final time, clobbering the curbs one final time. He squeezes on the throttle on the exit and pulls over to the right-hand side with the team hanging over the pit wall. Robert Kubica, Yifei Ye, and Phil Hansen have won the 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans. Just behind, Kevin Estre makes his way out of the chicane, just 14 seconds behind the winning Ferrari. What an incredibly close margin and close race, as Estre is visibly frustrated. It was such a valiant effort from the number 6 crew, but clearly they are not satisfied with 2nd place. And just behind, the 51 car crosses the line in 3rd place with the 50 of Fuoco just behind to make it a Ferrari 1-3-4. And what an incredible result it was for the 83 Ferrari, with the first Polish and Chinese winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans in that privateer crew. But aboard the 6 Porsche, we can see the disappointment on Estre's face. Such a valiant effort to come from last to 2nd, but ultimately they just didn't quite have enough to catch that number 83 Ferrari. Anyways, if you guys made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching and so much for supporting. It was such an incredible 2025 24 Hours of Le Mans, so I want to thank you guys so much again, and I want to give a special shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for watching and so much for supporting. I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and I will see you next time.